Welcome back. This week we're going to talk about Half-Ironman or 70.3 race pacing. So one of the first things you really have to take to heart with Half-Ironman training is you absolutely have to have your nutrition under control. Nutrition and hydration are really big components of longer races. The fastest athletes in the field are going to be at 4 hours and slightly under for the pros. And we're talking up to 7 or 8 hours for our back-of-pack athletes, which is a long event. So knowing your nutrition requirements, number one thing, other than actually getting out and training. So let's talk about the pacing strategies. For our highly advanced, really fit athletes, we've got some zones that you can talk about or some ranges of FTP. The swim, I don't get too deep into, but you need to swim to your ability, right? So if you're a really good swimmer, you swim pretty hard. If you're an excellent swimmer, you can swim pretty hard to very hard, but not so much that you completely blow up. If you're an okay swimmer, just swim a moderate pace, and so on. And that goes for every level of athlete, swimming to your ability, but not destroying yourself in the swim. So for the bike, for really good athletes, the range that you're looking at is your starting point for a range is 80 to 85% of FTP. So the faster you are, right, the faster your speed is, the closer you can go to your FTP. However, the max range is going to be up in that 88 to 90% range for athletes that are riding 2 hours. So if you're not riding 2 hours, you need to look further back. Because what we're getting into now is what sort of energy are you burning? Human body only has roughly 2,000 calories of stored muscle glycogen, which is going to be a major fuel source. Then you have your fat stores and then whatever you're taking in throughout the race. So something to understand for you guys that may not know about it, the harder you go, the more we're burning muscle glycogen and the less we're utilizing our fat stores, right? So if you're riding at 70%, you're not burning as much muscle glycogen, meaning you have less chance of running out throughout a half Ironman, meaning you wouldn't bonk as hard, even if you weren't taking in much nutrition. But if you're going really hard, or at this level, then your chances of bonking are significantly increased, right? So that's one. Number two, as far as the upper range for really good athletes, is how hard can you bike and still run well? So that is a personal question, but there's a range of 80 to 85% is your starting safe zone, and then you can inch up a little bit from there. For you guys that are really into it, there's some nice charts out there on the internet where you can calculate your training stress score, if you're familiar with that term, and the upper range is about 190 for a half Ironman race. That's getting into yellowish red zone, but that's the upper range, okay? If you don't know what training stress score is, go ahead and look it up. There's a lot of articles about that. It's a calculation based on your intensity factor and your FTP. So 80 to 85% starting point, and then the run, you're looking at pace-wise about 5 to 10% slower than your open half marathon pace. Meaning if you are able to run a 130 rested at a half Ironman, then your pace is going to be 134-ish to 139-ish. That's like a really good performance in a half Ironman. So threshold levels, we're talking about 90-ish% of your lactate threshold. And that's going to creep up if you're looking at heart rate because of cardiac drift. Cardiac drift happens in a longer event, meaning just cumulative fatigue is going to start to take a toll where you could see your heart rate rise, but your pace stays the same. So the goal in competitive half Ironman for, again, really good athletes is to be 5-ish% off your best time. If you can do that, you're having a really good day. There are going to be athletes who can squeeze a little more out of that, having a great day, fantastic. But that's your goal pace. Down to our intermediate level athletes. So somebody who's training, they're training well, but maybe not quite as much experience in the sport. or coming back from a long break, things like that. So you have to bring down your goals slightly. Same thing with the swim to your ability, don't destroy yourself. Now the bike, again, you could look at that 80% range, but if you're going to be like a 3-hour rider, you might find that you're going to have to go a little below that in order to run well, right? Because we're not just doing the bike, we're biking and running. So starting at that 80% of FTP and figure it out from there. Again, it's really useful to look at the charts so you would know approximately your TSS score the maximum TSS score that you could aim at and still run well. That being said, if your fitness is good but it's not great, you're probably going to want to err on the side of being a little low, because it's much better to give up 3 or 4 or 5 minutes on the bike and run the entirety of the half marathon at the end, because as soon as you start walking, you're adding 5 to 10 minutes per mile to your pace, right? So 1 mile of walking blows out 5 minutes on the bike. And then the run, we're talking at that 10% to 20% off of your half marathon open pace. So again, if you were a 1:30 open marathon, half marathon runner, now you're looking at somewhere in the 139 to 150 range would be a realistic and good achievement for you to do in that race. Going to our newer athletes. So let's say it's your first half Ironman, your first season or second season of training. You don't have the depth of training. You don't have the depth of experience at this sort of racing. You want to be much more conservative. Now, my advice, if it's your first race, is going to be on the extreme conservative side and enjoy it. Do the best you can without risking blowing up, because you might anyway. It's a long day. It's probably going to be warm as you're running, so there's a lot of factors in there. Maybe you don't have as much experience with the nutrition and hydration side of this, so you want to kind of line it up and just take your time and get through everything. So goal-wise or target-wise, we're looking at swimming at a easy moderate effort. You're not going to win this race on the swim. Almost nobody's going to win the race on the swim. On the bike, your starting point for your pace would be about 75% of FTP. Now, experienced Ironman athletes are racing at that level, but that's not you right now, so you need to dial it down. So starting point, 75% FTP. Again, if you are working with a power meter, take a look at those charts so you know what sort of time and effort level you can maintain without risking blowing up. And then on the run, we're in the 15 to 25% off your best half marathon, current half marathon open ability. So let's say your time is a 2 hour. That's what you did, several months ago. Now you're looking at, running 220, 215, 230, somewhere in that range. It's going to be a lot further away from your best time because of the fatigue that you're experiencing throughout the day. If you're an excellent runner, I know a lot of people transition into Ironman and half Ironman training from marathon running. If you're a really good runner, you can be more aggressive with this. But if the whole thing is new to you, you want to target a conservative time. And the effort level as far as lactate threshold goes is going to be 85% would be reaching up to the max, or like a zone 3 effort. And you may find that that's actually too hard to maintain, because when we're talking already having biked roughly 3 hours, swimming 30 to 45 minutes, and now we're running 2.5 hours, it's a long day, and you may struggle to hold that effort level for that long. So, all that being said, I got to go back to the nutrition thing. I'm going to do a separate presentation on that. Nutrition is super important when you get to this level of racing, as is understanding your effort levels and your pacing. Another thing that's really worth looking into is your variability index on the bike. This is actually a score that measures how often you're surging up and down, right? Like if you go hard for 2 minutes and on a hill or passing people and then you back off, things like that. There's something to know about the variability index, that if you go over 1.07 on the half Ironman, it increases your chances of struggling at the end of the run. And that's because every time you go hard to too hard, I'm just using those terms, you're burning more muscle glycogen, you're fatiguing your muscles more quickly. So it's very important for every level of athlete to ride at a steady effort, whatever that effort level is. So you want to maintain very steady output. So that's another thing you should really start looking at in training months before the race. So if you want to look at sprint and Olympic distance pacing, it's over here. And I'll do another one on Ironman training or pacing in a week or two. So like and subscribe. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.